Hey, all right, welcome back. And we're on to the next episode. Things in our world seem to have been settling a bit, if not fixed. And I think we recognize we're not headed for a return to normalcy in a lot of ways. And so I'm really excited to have today's guest on, Erin Anacker, who is a co-founder and head of product at Whole Story. Whole Story is a technology platform that helps people tell their stories when it comes to hiring. And that's a dumbed down way of saying what Erin's going to tell us here in a second. It's just that it's really a perfect timing to have her come on and tell us a little bit about her views of what's going to happen in the future, some of the positive changes that we're looking at. And if anybody has coined the term resiliency, this our little community, it's not me, it's Erin. She's launched a hashtag that is we are resilient, and can tell stories about resiliency that will make anyone feel super good about themselves and their situations, despite how bad things might look for some. So I want to leave it there, and thank you all for coming back. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and enjoy listening to Erin tell us about her world and some of the things that she sees that are happening for us. Thanks, and
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. So Whole Story provides insights into life experience to power better hiring. Our technology platform integrates the job seeker's pivotal life experiences into the hiring process so that their critical soft skills are revealed. And these are skills that are not necessarily on a resume, things like the ability to learn, adapt, navigate challenges, and really the most important skills to power organizational success. So that's the quick high-level introduction of what we do. And my role, as I mentioned, is the head of product. So I think about the strategy, where we're headed with the product, how it integrates with our business objectives, and how we can best serve all the stakeholders that we connect with and partner with and participate on our platform.
That's awesome. I've been talking to some people on these video podcasts who find themselves in positions right now with coronavirus, with dealing with the down economy, that are actually leveraging their skills now. Right? We talked to Patrick McNulty last time about how their company Aptentive is in a spot where the companies need their apps to communicate better with people because they're not coming into stores. And likewise, what I'm hearing, it sounds like maybe you're in a spot where being able to tell your story in a way that reveals how things like this challenge we're going through makes them a better hire is really a great spot. Is that a fair place to start? Because it sounds like you've got an opportunity.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting ride. I think I'll start with how it's impacted us and then the opportunities that we see. So out of the gate, it really wiped the table clear from investor prospects as we were raising a second round of investment, to customer prospects, current customers. And the hiring space is largely impacted by this, obviously. The exciting part for us is that the kernel or the essence of what we do is about transformation. It's about that rising phoenix that burns down into ashes and then comes out a new, stronger animal on the other side. And our platform allows people to really highlight those experiences, to talk about their resilience in a way that nothing else to date has enabled, at least at scale. Certainly there are interviewing techniques and methodologies that try to get at these skills, but by and large, candidates, job seekers are not conditioned to share these experiences, and interviewers are not trained or conditioned to receive these experiences. And we're hyper focusing on this narrow slice of who we are around work experiences. Like maybe that's, I don't even know, 10% of what I am capable of. why are we ignoring that 90%? I mean, there's just so much rich data that tells us more about future behavior, potential culture fit, um, you name it, mission alignment. There's so much that gets revealed in that. So in this crisis, it feels like um, the cracks in the foundation are being exposed more obviously, and that, the cracks in the foundation of hiring. There's a lot of other things that are being revealed right now. I won't go into that. But when we look at how hiring worked before or didn't work, that's exacerbated in this situation. And to better identify people who have the right emotional constitution, the courage, the strength, the perseverance, the adaptability in order to thrive, not just survive this, but to thrive in these types of circumstances. To be able to identify those people just feels like gold. And that feels like the biggest opportunity for us, is that um, this is making our case so obviously. As a startup, we're new on the scene. We're only a couple years post launching our product, post being in the market. So um, it's really an exciting time to have a blank slate and to see what has emerged from this. So that's sort of the big picture opportunity, but the um, more specific opportunity is that early on in this crisis, we felt a really strong desire to hear people's stories of resilience. So our platform today is text-based. It's really powerful, but we have to start somewhere. We'll eventually incorporate more different modalities into that. But we really wanted to hear stories, to see stories. So we launched this campaign called We Are Resilient, and asked people in our community and beyond to share their stories of resilience. Like, how have you grown? How have you built that muscle to really be able to go through something like this and not completely lose it, Uh, and people are amazing. I think we are so much stronger than we think we are. We are so much stronger than we view other people as. So that campaign helped to attract potential customer, our largest potential customer to date, both deal size and organizational size. They're a 1,000-person social service nonprofit, and a light bulb went off, along with a few other introductions that just seemed sort of serendipitous in their timing. We realized that social service organizations, for-profit or nonprofit, so mission-driven organizations, are really where we should focus. And that space, we're still early in our customer identification and research, but that space seems to be both in high demand and growing in terms of, grant dollars are being poured in to help support and serve our most vulnerable and underserved communities. So that's an exciting new development for us, as we've had this blank slate to start with, um, and come back at the market with something that just feels um, perfectly designed, perfectly aligned with who we are and what we care most about.
Wow, and there's so much there, especially the resilience part of it. And I'll put your website here up on the screen here in a second, if I haven't already, because everything gets fixed in post editing. But there's so much happening now that it's all. I mean, I want to ask a specific question here in a second, but I'm hearing that for everybody who's involved, I mean, you're speaking to people who might be losing work, looking for work, or know people who have. And I've talked to plenty of people who are in the recruiting space about companies who are. I'm hearing more like they're taking their foot off the brake, and they're realizing that this isn't going to last forever. Um, so, what would you say the future looks like? What is the next, 6 to 9 months of, and feel free to go beyond that if you feel like it's more important, but what does that look like for people um, who are telling their stories and having those conversations with potential employers, and maybe what, what can they do to, obviously they can hire you, which, I'm not sure, actually they probably goes the other direction, doesn't it?
It
But
does, yeah.
what is some of the advice you'd give people who are in that space, who are, this is such a valuable tool for understanding who you are as an individual, because that's going to happen anyway when you get hired in a place, right? Who you are is going to be more of what happens on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to what your resume says you are.
Right. Yes. The resume is completely inadequate. So to the job seekers who either found themselves unemployed during this time or became unemployed during this time, it really, in a lot of ways, the value of telling stories and not like tall tales, but the value of sharing who you are in the interview has not diminished. It has grown. Storytelling is our oldest form of communication, and it is how we are hardwired to both deliver and receive information that way. It's the best way that we can both communicate who we are, what we stand for, what we're capable of, and the best way for other people to actually hear that as like oh, this is a human being who could fit in my organization, rather than like, they don't have all the qualifications that I'm looking for as a number, as a resume. So it really humanizes people. When we share our story, it humanizes ourselves, and it creates a more authentic conversation in that interview space where information can flow more freely. So the other aspect of this that is really powerful is that, as the job market has been completely flooded, so competition for jobs, I think for the next couple years, is going to be very high, highly competitive. So when so when hiring manager receives these resumes, be it 2 or 1,000, resumes look the same by and large. When you're applying for a specific role with a specific set of expertise, it's really hard to differentiate between the best candidates. Of course, there's some pretty big gaps, and you can weed out some people based on like years of experience, if that's important, or specific licenses that are needed or whatever. But beyond that, it's really tricky from a resume to identify who the best candidates are to interview. So in presenting a whole story profile or a set of stories about yourself that are short, relevant, to the point, and highlight critical soft skills, you just differentiated yourself in a way that nothing else can. And there are no two stories that are alike. Even if everybody involved comes from the same socioeconomic background, from the same race, from the same educational background, there are no two stories alike. So, and it becomes even more powerful for underrepresented people in that space, because their stories are, they're able to communicate, we are able to communicate our unique value in that setting that no one else can articulate. So it really differentiates the job market.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It seems like an opportunity to for employers to find people who, I mean, diamond in the rough is a good, I guess, cliche to use, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
What happens to us? Those we're all thrown into the deep end. We're all now in that world of like resilience, or there's there's no real good alternative. Where do you think in the big picture we end up in all of this? Like, what's our next sort of path? As it seems like we've managed to dampen the worst of at least the disease side of things. Tell me your thoughts on that. Predict the future for me.
Who's we? Who are we talking about?
So,
We as in global society, or we as in the U.S., or we as in Seattle? What do you?
we I guess it's a good point. We're talking to sort of people in the business community here in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle's where our home is, and who we know people that are in this marketplace. But I'm open to you know whatever you want to. If you want to expand it to the global world, go right ahead.
Sure. Um, well, I don't have future predictability or predictive skills, not just yet anyway.
It's not a
So
fair question,
I'm
I
working
realize.
on that. uh, but I can see the nature of how we do business is fundamentally changing. The nature of how we communicate, how we interact, how we do global trade, um, how we govern, even, it is being challenged, thrown out the window, ripped out from underneath us. I mean, there's just so much upheaval happening. Um, there are a few things that are pretty specific that seem obvious, like remote work has accelerated. There's several things that seem to have to be accelerating. Uh, like I can see beyond this, after there's treatment, vaccine, and we've re-normalized to a new familiar way of living, that the more nomadic lifestyle that we've started to see with people moving around more, I think that will accelerate. I think the exodus from urban centers will accelerate. But it's hard to put a pin on it. The future of work, especially, seems to be disrupted, and I think there's a power shift that we're going to undergo. Right now, it's not fully realized because of um, so there was somebody who I was speaking with who said, we're still in the middle of the punch. The world just got punched in the face, and we're like right here, and there's like no way to really predict like which teeth are going to fall out and where's your hair going to go, and like so we're still mid punch. But there's some things that seem like this power shift. I think that while it's been in the hands, by and large, of employers in terms of how we work, so not the job market, that's been in the hands of candidates up until this point, but in terms of how we work, what we expect, um, who gets to demand what that looks like, I think that there's going to be a really pretty big power shift to employees, and the acceleration of gig work and project-based work, and looking at how the trends that have already been in play, um, many of which I think will just kind of lock into place.
Oh yeah, similar to how we've all now gotten very used to having Zoom or video meetings. When in the past we did it, but now it's part of our vocabulary and fabric. Mm-hmm. Okay, appreciate your time. Last question: as an entrepreneur, which puts you into a sales seat or communication with others about what's going on, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing coming out of this? Has it changed your business plan at all? Has it changed the way you communicate with people? What's going on for you in terms of like that growth gets you to the next level as a startup? Because you had one plan, and then 3 months ago you had one plan, and now you got potentially the same plan. But my guess is you've absorbed the punch, and now we're dealing with like how do we go to the next tier of what we're dealing with.
At least in terms of being in the middle of it, yes, we've adjusted. I think the biggest opportunity in crisis, and this is on an individual level, on a family level, on team and organizational level, is that it rips away any facade or illusion that the person and the professional are separate, or that the person has multiple peoples. the it's just sort of it's like a stripping, so that now we are standing naked, thankfully not on Zoom, but we are naked before one another as human beings, and we can speak more honestly, more transparently, more relationally. Um, there's a funny meme going around that I saw that had someone, from, I don't know which movie it was, I can't remember, but from old days, like, 1700s or something. And the meme said, and now we open our emails with, uh, I, I hope my, what is it? I hope my message finds you and your family well. There's sort of this funny kind of colloquial thing that's happening with, everybody is hyper aware that you could be in a really traumatic situation and my email might come at the wrong time. So we're being more careful with those types of communications. It seems, broadly speaking, I'm using that term, we, broadly. But we in Whole Story, myself and my partners, um, I think in some ways it's refreshing. You no longer have to have any kind of pretense, and there's not as much dog and pony show going on. So showing up to sales calls um, just feels so much more natural. It feels so much more human to start the call and really check in and ask, how are you? What's going on in your world? Where are you working? I'm working from my bedroom. and getting connected in that way, I think it's really powerful, particularly from a sales perspective, because that's how we sell, is to be the most authentic and to help guide people through that process of decision making. And at the end of it, if we're not a good fit, well, then we've done a good job. We've identified whether or not this is something that can move forward. So I appreciate the both the authenticity of crisis and what it demands of us.
That's super insightful, right? Because we've got this ability to have more an equal conversation, and it brings the walls down because there's a level of honesty that's just apparent, and
Right.
and you're in a space to where that's obviously something you're trying to bring to employers. So that's awesome. It's really great.
Well, and it's kind of magical because this is a collective experience. It's not just me and my family are going through X, Y, and Z, which could happen at any one time. I've been through some pretty major health struggles. I think I've shared with you and the world at large. I've posted on LinkedIn about it, but those types of things are perhaps more challenging in terms of communication and sales, because you just don't know. You don't know how it's going to be received or how you might receive information, communication, calls, scheduled calls, etc., and what the capacity is for taking those on. But in this time, by and large, we are all aware that we are all going through something traumatic. And the degree of that trauma, the intensity of that trauma is varied, but at least we have this shared moment where we can really connect as human beings and have a no shit for real conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I've taken up your time. You have anything else you want to leave us with?
I think that's it. I've talked enough. Yeah.
It was so awesome to have you, Erin. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It really does speak to like that optimism that we all ought to have, and I think I'm hearing a lot of that out there. I think we're really pulling through in all of this. So your voice is extremely welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate the opportunity.